Whispers of the Lantern Lake. Every summer, Lon returned to the village of her childhood, nestled between rolling hills and beside a lake where fireflies danced like tiny lanterns. Her grandparents' cottage stood by Lantern Lake, named for the tradition of floating lanterns on the water during the Mid-Autumn Festival. But this year, something felt different. It had been 10 years since she'd last seen Kaido. They were only 17 when they last stood under the old willow tree, where the wind whispered promises they never got to keep. Kaido had left for Japan the morning after the festival, leaving behind only a folded note and a small origami crane. "I'll come back when the cranes fly again," it said. Now 27, Lon had become a city architect, and love, real love, had become something she only designed into buildings, never into life. She walked along the lakeside path, memories catching in her chest like thorns. Then she saw him. Kaido. Standing near the edge of the water, lantern in hand, as if nothing had changed. But everything had. "Lon," he said, voice low and warm, just as she remembered. "I kept my promise." She couldn't believe it at first. They talked under the willow for hours that night, catching up on years lost to silence and distance. Kaido had returned to take care of his late grandfather's inn, and fate, it seemed, had brought them both back to where it all began. As days turned to weeks, they spent more time together, rebuilding the old inn, rediscovering quiet glances, old jokes, and unspoken feelings. One evening, as they floated lanterns across the lake again, Kaido took her hand. "I never stopped thinking about you," he said. "But I wanted to come back as someone who could walk beside you, not behind your memory." Lan's heart ached, not from pain, but from the overwhelming feeling of something long lost returning. She smiled, eyes shining with the lake's golden reflection. Under the stars and 1,000 glowing lanterns, they kissed, finally, not as the teenagers they once were, but as the people they had grown into. That night, the willow tree whispered again. Not of promises, but of beginnings. Beneath the lantern sky. In the quiet old town of Hoshikawa, nestled between mountains and rivers, lanterns were lit every night to chase away the darkness and tell stories of love, loss, and longing. It was in this town, beneath a sky glowing with paper lanterns, that Hana and Rin met. Hana was a young woman who ran her family's bookstore. Every evening, she would sit behind the counter, reading under the soft glow of yellow lamps, dreaming of distant places and stories that ended with forever. Ren, on the other hand, was a traveling photographer, a wanderer with a quiet heart and a camera always hanging around his neck. One autumn evening, Ren walked into the bookstore looking for a book about the stars. He wasn't sure why, he rarely read, but something about the way the lanterns lit up the streets made him want to learn their names. Hana looked up from her book when he entered. She had seen many faces over the years, but his was different. There was something gentle in his eyes, something quietly searching. "I think you're looking for this one," she said, pulling a weathered astronomy book off the shelf without asking what he needed. He smiled. "How did you know?" She tilted her head. "Because you looked up at the stars before you walked in." That was the beginning. Ren stayed in Hoshikawa longer than he'd planned. Days turned into weeks. He would come by the bookstore every afternoon, pretending to browse, always ending up in long conversations with Hana. They spoke of stars, of dreams, of memories too painful to say out loud. And slowly, between pages and photographs, they fell in love. They would walk by the river after closing time, their hands brushing, sometimes holding. Hannah spoke of her fear of being forgotten. Wren showed her photographs of places he had been, each with a story, each a memory captured in silence. "I've never stayed in one place this long," he confessed one night. "But with you, I don't want to leave." The Lantern Festival came in winter. The entire town lit up with soft, glowing lights that floated into the sky. Wishes written on thin paper were tied to the lanterns, sent drifting into the night. Hannah wrote hers carefully, "Let this love not be another passing season." Wren watched her, then wrote his, "Let me find the courage to stay." But love, like all things beautiful, has its tests. Wren was offered a job overseas, a prestigious opportunity in Europe, something he had dreamed of before he met Hannah. He was torn. The night before his departure, he stood outside the bookstore, holding the letter in his hand. Hannah looked at him, her voice calm but trembling. "If you leave, I won't stop you. I won't ask you to stay. But know that my heart is staying here." Wren looked down. "I don't want to lose you." "Then don't," she whispered. He left the next morning. Months passed. The bookstore remained open, though quieter. Hannah never replaced the lanterns that Wren had helped her hang. She waited, but never hoped. Not fully. She told herself she had to let him go, to let him find his place in the world. Then, one spring evening, just as the cherry blossoms bloomed and the sky turned to dusk, a familiar figure stood at the door. He had no luggage. No camera. Just eyes that remembered everything. "I couldn't find the stars without you," Wren said. Hannah didn't speak. She walked to him and placed her hand over his heart. "You came back." He nodded. "To stay." Under the soft lantern sky of Hoshikawa, two hearts that had once wandered found home in each other again. And this time, there was no goodbye.